jumping into tonight's game, a couple of housekeeping items. One is the final podcast of the Fantasy Football for Winners podcast will be on January 5th. That's the Monday after the final day of the regular season. And I hope to pick it back up next summer. And that comes to the second housekeeping item, which is if you want to leave a review, please do. If you want to not leave a review, and if you like the podcast and want to just send me a note, that helps too. The Fantasy Football for Winners blog, when I started it in 2013, it continued and grew in large part because of feedback I got from people encouraging me to continue building on it. Even though there were at least a couple occasions when I just thought, this takes too much time. So if this is worth it to you, if you enjoy it, please just, send me a note or write a review or both. I would appreciate it. Thank you. Now to tonight's game. There's one pressure point I want to highlight, zoom in on. Yesterday I added Isaac TeSlaa, the rookie. I spent $4 of my $200 free agent budget to get him. Amon-Ra St. Brown is officially questionable on the Lions depth chart. He very well could play, obviously. That's what questionable means. He very well might not. If he doesn't, the Lions receiving core, as most of you understand, will be Jameson Williams. And then Ross Dwelley at tight end, the fourth string tight end, because the top three are all out. Khalif Raymond is also out. Khalif Raymond is an interesting guy. He and Tom Kennedy, and before that, Quintez Cephas and Josh Reynolds were part of this collection of Lions wide receivers who, in the early part of this decade, were, backups essentially, but they would fill in. Like one of them would step up if needed. That was kind of how it worked. And when Jameson Williams was drafted, and pairing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, suddenly these guys were not needed as much anymore. And now you have a case where, one of them might be needed. And Tom Kennedy last week, was that guy. Caught several passes, looked good. The question becomes, why TeSlaa? Why not Kennedy? Here's my thinking. And if Amon-Ra St. Brown plays, all bets are off with TeSlaa, and he becomes an unnecessarily risky flyer. What I like about TeSlaa, if St. Brown sits, is a few things. Number one, the Lions drafted him in the third round, which is fascinating to me. It was the sixth pick of the third round. It wasn't like late third round. It was right in the middle of day 2 of the draft. They did that. Who knows why? They did that because they liked him. They already had one of the best wide receivers in the game, and they also had one of the better number 2 wide receivers in the game. Why draft TeSlaa in the third round when the Lions were if not Super Bowl caliber team, they were the next tier of capable teams that could make some noise in the playoffs? They could have drafted any number of players at that spot, pick number 70, to shore up the defense or to improve the offensive line or whatever. They chose TeSlaa, which says to me that they are invested in him, not just for the long term, but also for this year. They probably thought that he could be someone who could step in and be a strong number 3 wide receiver. The NFL has had an illustrious history of number 3 wide receivers who have actually done some pretty solid things. Tyler Boyd is a good example. I've used him before on the podcast or on the blog, or maybe both. Even back in Jared Goff's earlier days, when Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods were the primary wide receivers, Cooper Kupp was the number 3. And so number 3s can have a role even in pass-friendly offenses, like the 2 I just mentioned. So there's that side of it. The Lions made a decision to draft TeSlaa, and I think that decision suggests that they are already invested in him. Now, the other side of it is, well, how invested are they? Well, last week, he had one less offensive snap than Jameson Williams, and he had about 10 or 15 more than Kennedy. Essentially, TeSlaa was on the field almost the entire game on offense, even when St. Brown was on the field. So TeSlaa is not somebody who suddenly has to start getting into the game TeSlaa has been in the game. TeSlaa has been involved in past weeks. He's had a lot of offensive snaps so far, enough where he is probably pretty well acclimated as a rookie as we get, now into December. And the question becomes, at some point, he's going to get 5 catches for 70 yards. I mean, that's going to probably happen at some point in the next year or two. Why couldn't it happen on Thursday if St. Brown sits? It seems the stars are pretty aligned for him to be the number 4 offensive option behind Williams, behind Jahmyr Gibbs, and behind David Montgomery. So if again, it all comes down to St. Brown's status. If St. Brown sits, I would be all in on Isaac TeSlaa as a desperation dart throw. And I'm going to put my money where my words are and say that if St. Brown sits, I'm going to start TeSlaa. That's the way it goes. And my reason is I have Tutoria McMillan. I've got Wan'Dale Robinson. They're both on bye. I've got Marvin Harrison Jr., who exited early last week after returning from his appendectomy. T. Higgins has been in the concussion protocol. He's out, and hopefully he'll be back, but we'll see. But I've got a lot of question marks right now on offense. So TeSlaa suddenly becomes this guy who I could plug in what could be a very high-scoring game, and he could be the number 4 offensive option. I would rather lock in what could be a really nice breakout game versus sitting him and then hoping Harrison and Higgins returns. Some of you are in a similar boat. Some of you are in a much better boat that is not taking on water, and keep sailing, man. Just do what you need to do and don't worry about TeSlaa. But for those of you in my position, TeSlaa offers this fascinating upside that is untapped, unrealized, but that doesn't mean that he can't realize it. The Lions invested major draft capital, given what they had and what they needed to get him. That means something. I'm BJ Riddell, Fantasy Football for Winners. Follow me on the blog. Email me anytime. Good luck if you've got players going tonight, especially TeSlaa. See you tomorrow.